Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Claims Never Sleep. I am joined by a new co-host today, Amanda. Welcome,
Hi.
Amanda.
Hello.
You are here for your very first podcast. I'm so happy
Yes,
to have you.
I'm happy to be here.
I love co-hosting with Jen. I don't want to take anything away from Jen, but I also love when I get new people on because this is just such a fun part of my job, and I love when other people get to experience it with me. So
It's something
welcome.
new. Yes.
And I'm super excited about today's episode. We are joined by Amy Fitzpatrick. And Amy, I don't know how else to describe her. She's dynamic, she's hilarious. And I mean, I could listen to her talk for hours. She just has so many tidbits of wisdom and she cracks me up. But don't you think?
She's hilarious.
Yes. So you're really in for a treat. So with that, let's bring her in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruiser Mitchell, with your host, Megan Henry.
Good afternoon, Amy. Welcome to Claims Never Sleep. I'm so happy to have you.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate your time.
So our listeners know this is our take 2 on recording this podcast. We attempted last week and you were blocked by the firewall. Our recording studio was not accessible to you, so we pivoted, as we often have to do in this industry that we are in.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, the story of our lives is pivoting and adjusting, right? As things get thrown at you. So that is a good theme, to keep in mind throughout our industry.
Yes. Curveballs, we got to go. We got to go with it.
Go with the flow.
And I'm so happy to have Amanda here. It's her first podcast as well, and Amy's first podcast. So I promised you both off air it would be an easy and painless experience, and I feel confident by the end you'll agree with me. But for everyone who listens to this, they know that any guest I have on, I like to get started in how you got into this claims professional world, because everyone's path there is so different. And very rarely does someone say, I want to be a claims professional. I want to go into insurance. Many is by accident or just the bobs and weaves of life. So Amy, I'm curious. So what was your path? And you have a very interesting educational background too that I want to get into as well.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up kind of similar to an Army brat. My dad was State Department, so grew up mostly outside the U.S., which exposes you to a lot of different cultures, different ideas, different educational models, right? Because you're kind of going back and forth from various types of systems, whether private or government or U.S. public or U.S. private, or, so some variety of that, and calendars and holiday sessions and teachers. So, I ended up, landing in the U.S., 17, graduated high school at 17. And there's challenges there that we can, kind of segue into if you want to. But anyway, ended up staying in the States, going to school. My parents had left at the beginning of my sophomore year of college. They left the country on another posting. So it was me on my own, at college. And that was back in the day that your parents didn't automatically give you a car when you went to college, like it is now, right? Now they wouldn't even think of leaving you somewhere without transportation. But anyway, so ended up, my original career path was I would go to college, I would get into government service. I had worked from the, basically the day after I graduated from high school, I worked at the State Department, and that was going to be my career path. I wanted to follow the same trajectory. I wanted to be foreign service. I wanted to be more, my skill set, I think, even from then, was more of information gathering and analytic and strategy. Even back then, kind of in hindsight and in thinking about it a little more in preparation for today, was always with that mindset. And, I was very interested in going into kind of the intelligence community. And that was my original plan. And then, as all good plans do, they take a left turn for whatever reason. I found myself a little bit at odds with that original kind of plan. And, just kind of a little bit at loose ends, ended up getting married, having a child, which sometimes resets your priorities as it should. And lived in a town where they then built what became a regional headquarters for an automobile insurance company. So that was my introduction. I really kind of went in looking for, a job, a decent, a professional job that had some upward career path mobility. And for those in the 20-year-old, early 30s range, you kind of think you're invincible. So you don't really think about things like health insurance, and vacation time and sick leave. And, sometimes you're not really exposed to that like people now are. Right. I mean, now that those conversations happen, usually one or both parents work. So you're familiar with having to take vacation time and, all of those things. So as one does, I was in my 20s, late 20s, and I was like, crud, I need health insurance. So I went to work at this insurance company, national company, auto, homeowners, stayed there in about 5 years. And and then I kind of was like, well, this can't be it. And moved to where I now am and have been, since 2001. Took a job. Honestly, I took the job for just merely to move here. And then the person who I reported to resigned after about a month.
Because it wasn't you.
Yeah, it was all my fault. But so I, and he's like, come with me and do professional liability.
So it wasn't on you. He liked you.
Me. He was doing it anyway. But I mean, he and I hit it off. We had a very similar mindset, and he was like, hey, why don't you come with me and work for this, now international company. Back in the day, it wasn't, and do professional liability work. And I said, okay, it's only 3 miles from my house. Done. At that time, my daughter was young, so I was worried about, doing things with her with school. So it was perfect. Right. Moved there, fast forward about a year. And he's like, yeah, I'm switching. I'm moving to a different area of the country, the company. And I was like, no, and then kind of transition at that point into what became the, kind of the big piece of my career, which was, at that point in time was kind of referred to as major claims. It was mass tort, class actions, kind of runoff world. I lovingly refer to them as the big nasties, tobacco, asbestos, pollution, right? It kind of doesn't get nastier back in the day, right? Was at that company through a lot of changes and morphing and whatever, but ended up leaving there, about two and a half years ago, almost 3 years ago now, moving to where I am now, Coaction Specialty Insurance Company. And it presented kind of a very unique opportunity to take my skill set, over the years and be in a company that was growing and building. And that really interested me, and that's where I am now. But it came rather circuitously, and it wasn't at all thoughtful. It was opportunity. Back in the day, needed a job, needed benefits, and we can't lose sight of the basics like that, right? Sometimes it isn't entirely professionally planned or motivated. But then just kind of fell into it. And, and that's kind of where we are today,
So, and as that is a theme that, as I talk to a lot of people, that is most of the themes in claims is you kind of end up there accidentally, and the rise up the ranks is almost like what opportunities are presented to you at certain moments in your career, and kind of embracing those opportunities and kind of taking them and seeing where they get you.
I think you're right, Megan. There is opportunity, and then you kind of get whether it's consciously or subconsciously weighing about whether or not to jump, right?
Yes.
And those of us that are kind of older, I can say in my career, I'm on the back end, right, of my career more than the front end, if you want to call it. I'm on a Thursday of my career of the work week, right? So, I think those of us that are in that part of it, we grew up with a little bit of different, in a different time almost. It's not quite a full generation, I'd like to say, but, you kind of, you're drilled into by your parents, by your mentors, whatever. It's much less about, the highlights are not necessarily do what makes you happy or brings you joy or a work-life balance necessarily, right? I mean, that's definitely the older generation is loyalty, rise in the ranks because of seniority and ability. Not necessarily, now I think, everybody fully understands the mental and the emotional component of being at a company. Where you do have balance, where there's appreciation for your own time. You're looking for different things. You may not think of, things like company loyalty and seniority and developing a long time. I mean, I left my old company after being there for 23 years. Yeah, in hindsight, I don't know anybody really who does that anymore. You move every few years. And that's the way you both you build your resume, you build your knowledge base, you build your salary, and not many people do that, stick it out, if you want to say it that way, and whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, I think now people are much more in tune with, the business side of our careers, right? If that makes sense to you. I don't think, I know when my daughter went through high school, just by comparison, she had to take a class on like how to do her taxes and how to balance a checkbook. I didn't know how to invest,
Yes.
And I think those skills were not available, to develop when I was graduating from high school and even graduated from college, unless I majored in business or took a random business class. Yeah. I figured it out for myself.
Right. I mean, my daughter's in 7th grade and everyone has to take like a financial literacy class. She's clueless though. She's like, I don't understand any of this.
Right. But I look at people, that come up behind, like you guys are younger than I am, Amanda, you're rising in your career. I think probably, you're following Megan, which is great. And those things about. You have at least know the questions to ask, going through and looking at like my parents who are now, my dad just hit 80. We never talked about having benefits. It was all just make sure you support yourself. That was it. That was the conversation. Get your college degree, support yourself.
So I want to back up a little bit though to your time of growing up though, because you did have such a unique youth growing up overseas. So how was that experience for you, especially like growing up elsewhere in another country and then coming to the US for college? Was that, was it a bit of a culture shock or, how did, especially at 17 too. So how did you handle that?
So I think those, we're a unique club, right? Of Army brats or military or State Department or, State Department, I think is a little bit different because you do have some amenities and experiences with similar groups of people. Usually when you're Army or Air Force or one of those, you're generally on a base, you go to a base school, it's a DOD school, Department of Defense, education, and I had some of that, where they were, we lived, generally did not live on a base. We lived, in the local economy, work, in those monies, whatever. Some of them were, one of them, I guess, two were American schools,
Okay.
And supported by the embassy, supported by, the Department of Defense generally. But, it's interesting because you definitely are exposed to a lot of different ideas. I think you have a very different perspective because you're also, when you're meeting people in similar situations. Obviously, you don't make, one of the things that always, is hard to come to grips with is you don't really have a hometown.
Yeah.
So those of us that grew up and are going to high school reunions, that's a big deal. I'm like, I could not pick people that went to my high school where I graduated from out of a lineup. I couldn't. And that's only, I did my primary school, grade school, was all pretty much through 6th grade was all overseas. So kindergarten through 6th grade, all overseas. Came back to the U.S., did 7th, 8th grade, 9th grade, U.S., 9th grade, freshman year of high school.
Okay. At a regular school, like
regular public school, graduating class 600 and something.
Yeah.
Were
you like this like interesting like creature that
it's funny because you're kind of become in hindsight, you become kind of this chameleon a little bit. You're part of groups, but not really.
Yeah.
So it's
hard.
Both, it can be, it depends on the person. I was very, so I was more of an introvert through that because you really, you learned kind of, you had to rely on yourself a lot to entertain yourself, to, you didn't have close friends. You just did because either they were moving or you were moving, every 2 years. And at that age, you don't understand that you have to work at relationships, like that. Right. I mean, it's true. So easy. You fall out of your house. If you have a traditional hometown, you're seeing the same people K through 12, very infrequently just new faces come in or those people leave. Right. And if they do, it's to the next town over. Right. I mean, so you still run into people at the mall or at Wawa or whatever, and, so, that was a challenge, because also, when you're going to a smaller school, it's not, there's some level of like the cliques from high school. We all know the smart kids, the geeks, the emo crew, the jocks, the cheerleaders, the drama club, whatever. And they all kind of stay in their lane. When you go to a school, that is smaller, whether it's private, whether it's not, everybody does everything. There are some degree of the smart kids and the jocks or whatever, but people generally do everything. Which is interesting because for high school, I did 9th grade, freshman year of high school. I was like king of the heap. I had a lot of interests, head in schooling because I've just always been that way. And my dad is like, okay, I'm being sent overseas. Freshman year, high school. So sophomore year, we're moving to South Africa. And, I had plans. Yeah. Right.
And you're a teenager, so you're cranky and you're bitchy.
Right. So
it's such a pivotal time.
I was 13 years old, 14 years old, whatever it was. And we were supposed to be in the States through my sophomore year. And he's like, I've cut the posting short. I've accepted this posting to South Africa a year early, basically.
Were you pissed at your dad?
I still to this day hold a grudge. To this day, because it only gets worse.
Oh,
so
God.
So we moved. Yeah. So we moved to South Africa, which was, at the time it was at the breakdown of apartheid. So incredibly stressful. we went to private school. We had security. We did a lot of drills about bombs and, you know, that kind of stuff. Things that we don't have to deal with necessarily. You know, we used to do air raid drills. We used to do what would happen if someone invaded the school and took us all hostage. You know, all that kind of crazy stuff.
Lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not the hide under your desk thing. It's it's things that we're now, unfortunately dealing with a lot in our schools. But I did this 40 years ago. You know, so again, different environment a little bit. I got it a lot quicker, and it's unfortunate. It's never great. But then, so we were there, my sophomore and junior, 10th and 11th grade, high school, and then we moved back to the U.S. for my senior year. So my graduating class at the school I was in South Africa was 15. My graduating class when we came back to the US was 628.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is what I lord over them and will until the day I die. So it's generally that part of my life. It took me a long time because I knew nothing when I came back. All the people that I was friends with freshman year, it's the same school, moved on.
Yeah.
I'd been gone for 2 years.
That's like, those are like fickle teenage friendships, like, and at a time that you can't connect like you can now. What are you writing letters? Like,
I mean, this is pre-internet, so it's not like pre-cell phones, right? So it's, I mean, it's not like you can text or FaceTime or email.
Keep in touch.
No.
So that was a challenge because, while we were in overseas in a smaller environment, I was on the volleyball team, I was in the music program, I was student council, all of these things that are very cliquey and niche in the US, I was doing it. So I came back, expecting to be able to join all of these things. And it was, and I did, but it was tough.
Yes, that is
so
that probably got you ready though to handle pretty much any situation.
It was, yes. In hindsight, it was kind of like drinking from the fire hose, which we all do now, all the time, So you are, as you get older, you get more analytical and you get perspective. Sometimes it takes longer for certain things than others. But you kind of, that kind of upbringing, you depend on yourself, right? Yeah. And you develop that core, that helps you kind of figure out things, right? Whatever that might be. It may take a little longer, you might, and I say a lot of things. I'm a lot of times the person you call that will just get it done. It doesn't matter what it is, really, know, and my response to that is always, I'll get it done, but do you want done or do you want pretty? Because, I'm going to get it done no matter what it is. May not be pretty. Yes. It may not be perfect, but it will get it done, So, and I think there's a lot to that because I had to. It wasn't pretty, but I got it done. I graduated.
Yes. But so you graduated at 17 though, and then you said that you go to school and then your parents then move back overseas. So you're kind of on your own. But did you embrace that?
They abandoned me. Yeah, I have issues. But yeah, they moved. They were reposted after just, so my senior year, senior year high school, freshman year college. They moved back overseas. I have 2 younger sisters, took them, and went over to. They were in Germany, Bonn.
So how did you handle that in school? Like that must have been hard on school breaks when people go home and it's not as easy for you to go home.
No, it wasn't easy. I mean, the closest relative was was about 100 plus miles away. You know, and necessity is the mother of invention, right? So, you know, I bummed a lot of rides, bought a lot of gas for people. You just find a way, right? We do that. That's what we do. We figure it out, you know? And yeah. I mean, figured it out. You know, I relied on friends somewhat. But you kind of just, there's not a choice, right? In that situation. It's not like I would have transferred to a university to be there. You know, my life needed to be here in the US. So,
and in a way, you needed to start to grow your roots for yourself, right? You know, and establish yourself where you saw yourself staying, you know?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it was kicking it out of the nest, right? And, you know, I will say, you know, college generally, you know, is where people figure out they have a safety net, right? Generally, if you're away at college, there's, you know, you're somehow, you know, tuition's paid, room and board is paid.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a safety net. You're not truly financially responsible for yourself, generally. I mean, you work through college, you get loans, you get grants, you know, whatever. I mean, we all have various, you know, financial sources. Sometimes it is on you, you know, and I did work through college. But, you know, there's that not like you're worried about your next meal kind of pressure, you know, and that you don't know where you're going to sleep kind of pressure. I mean, you still have the, I need to figure it out for myself pressure, because there's nobody that I can call that's going to quick, you know, do something.
No, because they're, you know, multiple time zones away.
Yeah. And at the, you know, we're talking in a time period, you know, again, that, you know, the airline was Pan Am. I mean,
Pan Am was so classy. That was the classiest airline.
That was the classiest airline, right? You know, I mean, I flew on TWA. I mean, again, I'm dating myself here, but you know, but there were not only multiple time zones, but there were only like 2 flights a day at most.
To
the airport near them or near me, you know. So I remember in it was probably my summer of my junior year or something, and I missed the flight.
Oh man.
I was supposed to fly home. My roommate drove me to the airport and we missed it. And I was just because the next flight wasn't for another, you know, a full day. I had already checked out, you know, it was summer. I had already checked out of college, packed my, you know, all my life was in 2 suitcases. You know, that's the other thing. You can't collect things because it has to fit in 2 suitcases to go home.
Yeah.
So that was probably at the time the most, you know, like just tragedy in my life, right? Is missing that flight.
Oh, I can imagine. And just,
because I mean, what do you do?
It's not, again, you have to go talk to someone. You got to get your paper tickets.
Paper tickets. I don't even think I had a credit card, so I couldn't have
Probably not.
And I don't remember there being like an airport hotel where I could like call my dad. Again, you know,
and you need probably a calling card to call him because
card. Yep, you're right. No. That was back in the, you know, the days where, you know, I would talk to my parents once a week, and it was like after 7 p.m. You know, like I had to either get up way early. Remember that, because there were time. You know, it was cheaper.
Yeah.
It was cheaper after certain times. So I mean, there would be. I had a calling card. I didn't have a credit card.
Yeah, that was like the standard Christmas stocking gift too, is to get your calling card.
Calling card, batteries, a toothbrush, and an orange was
an art. Oh, because isn't that good luck?
Orange.
Yes.
Yes, to be fair, my parents still give us those same things except the calling card every year.
I'm sure.
Now it's a AAA card.
Oh, yes.
Right. Right. It morphed from the calling card to a AAA membership every year. Right.
Yes. I don't. Why is that like such a universal thing? Is there like a group discount at AAA?
I think it's an old dad thing.
It totally is.
Right? It's like, I want to take care of my kids. I can't quite accept that they can like fully take care of themselves. They will buy it if they need it attitude. But yeah, to this day, we still, I mean, I'm however old I am, and my sisters are too. You know, I'm in my mid-50s at this point. I'll say that much. My parents,
you could probably secure AAA on your own.
I have so many batteries.
But you know what? Batteries are always good to have on. I hope, are they AA? Hope, because those are the ones you always need.
Only AA.
Yeah,
that's what you need.
No, AAA.
Really? Well, I guess some of the smaller.
The remote controls for TVs are AAA. Mount batteries are either, right? They can go either way. But I actually have so many batteries. I was in there cleaning out, you know, the junk drawer, right, that we all have.
Yes.
And there was a pack, 2 packs of them that had exploded because they were so old.
They're like beyond expired.
But inevitably, I'll need a battery, and I won't be able to find one.
Maybe next year they need to get you a battery storage container.
I don't know. I mean, we all have, whether it's our own parents or our uncles or aunts or whomever. Inevitably, there's either a battery drawer organized by size, or my dad at some point in time transitioned to rechargeable batteries.
Yes.
So they have the big charging thing,
which never work very well.
Which never work right. Or the power goes out and they don't go back and turn it back on, so all of the power.
Yes.
I'm like, no.
I remember my grandfather would always have the rechargeable batteries, and then he'd have that thing you could just test their level, and that was what we would do at my grandparents' house.
I just licked the end.
Also, you would do that too. Be like, how much is it going to shock me?
Yeah, there's enough charge. Okay. Oh my God, that's so funny.
And the coin counter. Does your dad have a coin
counter? The sorter. Oh, he has one that's
and the sleeves.
Yes.
The sleeves. I have some of those still. I hope
in my junk drawer.
No. So my dad has the fancy one that with the counter on top. Have you seen that with like the cylinders down the sides, and you just feed them in the same slot and it sorts it automatically?
That is nice.
It's very sexy.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yes, I just remember being at like my grandparents' house, and that was our entertainment. It was checking the battery charges and sorting the coins and like rolling them.
And rolling them. Yes. But now they're doing away with pennies. What will we do?
I guess nickels.
Less coins to sort.
Although I think I could supply the penny shortage pretty well in my house.
I kind of feel that way myself. Yeah, I do have probably several rolls of pennies, but
yes.
I also have a box of like various other coins, like currencies.
Oh yeah, because you know they might be worth something more.
So yeah, my parents are now at the stage in their life so that when it's like a present type time of the year, we get boxes of stuff. I don't know if you guys have gotten to that yet. Like they'll give us, you know, a box of coins or your baby book.
Yeah.
Or like a baby ornament or like Christmas ornaments. I got those.
And I'm like, so my youngest sister, who is 13 years younger than me, I'm like, so are you going to tell them that we're just throwing it away or am I, you know, because it's all stuff that they think we want and they've kept for however long and they just don't want to throw it away. So they give it to us. So we have to make the decision.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well,
the guilt.
when my mom changed, like she sold my childhood home and moved to like a 55 and older community. And when she was going through, I mean, I feel kind of bad. I left all this stuff there and she's like going through it. I remember I had all these tapes because in high school and college, I was really into like getting like bootleg live tapes and she was like, they were very organized. I carried that freaking thing of tapes to college and back. I mean, that came everywhere with me. And she was like, should I save the tapes? I'm like, no, I don't even have a tape player. But I mean, nice of her to ask, but I was like, no, I don't need my Dave Matthews tape from 1994.
It's time to let go.
It's time to let go. The only thing I have rescued from the garbage was vinyl.
Yes.
Like actual.
It's trendy now.
Yes.
Right. And so I have a stack of vinyl, and because my mom just was like on a throwing away spree, and I was like, you can't throw away the Beatles' White Album. Are you nuts?
Oh no. Absolutely not.
So yeah.
Of all the things, she's giving you batteries in a box, and she's
I'm just telling you. I mean, the toy stuff is kind of cool because a lot of them are from countries that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But yeah, no, my new rule, in my house is if I bring something in, I have to take something out. Mm-hmm. So for everything I bring in the door, I have to throw away whatever that quantity of whatever. Like if I buy a new pair of shoes, got to ditch an old pair.
That's a good rule.
That is a good rule.
So you're at least breaking even. It may still not be pretty, again, to our pretty but finished.
But it's finished. The job is done.
But I'm not making it worse. And that is a good rule for life, right? Is, and raising my daughter, my rule with her is, if you don't, okay, fine. You don't want to do chores. You don't want to help around the house. You got to live in your room, right? But my rule was, that's fine, but you can't make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't leave your shoes in the living room. You can't leave your books strewn around from school. Yeah. You can't leave dirty dishes. You can't make it worse. And that was my rule.
That's a good rule. I kind of have that rule. I'm losing. I'm very much losing.
But then you can start. So you have to just, I think with my daughter, because I was a single mom, her dad died very young. And, I think you have to number one, pick your battles. Number two, figure out what works for you. Mm-hmm. Right. And then you have to figure out the appropriate remedy, mm-hmm. For that. And these days, the remedy is easy, right? You take away the Wi-Fi password.
Yes. Or the Wi-Fi or the phone.
The phone or whatever. And I just, you do it one or two times, you don't have to do it again.
True. Yes. Very true.
So that used to be the remedy is, all right, give me your phone. Mm-hmm. No phone for 2 days. What? Yep.
Yeah. What do you mean? That's so unfair.
It's my phone.
So unfair.
You're mean. Slam.
Yep.
Stomp, 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 slam. Right.
I grew up in that sweet spot between like where I didn't have a cell phone for like part of my teenage years and then I did. So they would just take the door off my bedroom when I was bad.
Oh,
that's right.
I didn't have a cell phone.
I wasn't. Yeah.
What did you do to get your door taken away?
What did you do?
What are your skeletons, Amanda?
Like, you know what? You can't slam the door anymore because we're going to take it off the hinges.
That sounds like a very parental consequence.
No, that wow. I know. I it was too much work to take the door off.
Yeah, because I feel like once you take it off, it's never going back on right. Like,
oh my God, right?
I took the doorknob out once. Does that count?
Yes. It's part of the door.
Yeah, and then you have this big hole you can look through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they probably did it once or twice, right? I mean, and then you learned.
I learned my lesson. No more slamming doors.
Oh man.
Too funny.
So okay, so back to claims. So
back to claims. Yes. Oh
yes.
yeah, claims.
Oh yeah.
I told you we get off topic here.
Way down the rabbit hole.
So okay, so you get into claims, and then you have basically it's a kind of a mentor, and you kind of he brings you over to a very large carrier, and what do you think? You're handling complex claims there, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the things in hindsight, I think, I built, that career pretty, mindlessly, but in hindsight, I intuitively kind of did it in the right order. You do kind of auto homeowners, which is volume. It's generally not catastrophic, multi-million-dollar, right?
Yeah.
Type situation. You have people that just want to get the darn car fixed or want to feel better, and you pay the bills and you settle it and you're done, right? And then you go into kind of the professional liability world, which I did for, I don't know, about 2 years. And it was attorney malpractice, accountant malpractice, real estate. It was, a variety of E&O type things, right? And there you learn about different coverage concepts, right? That, the kind of there's various coverage concepts that just, the big thing with auto and homeowners is, did it happen during the policy period, and did you do anything to cause it, intentionally? I mean, that was kind of it, right? When you get into professional liability, back in those days, they are claims made. So that's a different concept at the time. All of those old, policies with doctors and lawyers and whatever, they used to have, they had to agree to settle.
Yes.
So that requires you to have some level of soft skills, right? And then jumping into major claim, you're hit with kind of both volume, and you're also expanding from a geographical perspective. You have to be very aware of legal, concepts.
Yes.
You rely on counsel, of course, but you learn the difference between joint and several and all sums, and which are very similar. The concept of pro rata, multiple carriers having to agree, and it's quite a learning curve if you don't have at least the basics, from that I think I got from those earlier experiences. So I got kind of dumped in the deep end of the pool, working for a large insurance company with these huge liabilities and policies, that were 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago, right? That were, very different. Different companies, involved in that, kind of moved over into, although it was kind of from a financial legal standpoint, it was mostly the same company. Stayed with them throughout those 20 years, but taking on very different policies and exposures. I mean, it was asbestos. I really, my sweet spot was asbestos.
Yeah.
I mean, but I handled tobacco. I handled a few lingering DES claims, which was the old pregnancy drug back in the day that were still lingering. Lot of pollution type claims. And there's a whole bunch of a variety of toxic torts that came in, and you just, you kind of figure it out, and you learn as you go. You ask a lot of questions, you figure out what the questions actually are, and you develop relationships. So, and I call it the phone a friend,
Yes.
Which is why I think, you have to embrace things that you're not familiar with, because, you go, all right, yeah. And then you figure, and now we have the luxury of internet, where you can say, okay, no, Google, my friend,
Yes.
And you develop your network, and sometimes it's good, sometimes, and then you develop a sense, right?
Yes.
Through experience, you've got your gut instinct after a certain period of time as to who to call, who to trust.
Yes.
Who you know, and we all go through that at different points.
It's funny, early in my career, I didn't do a lot of mass tort work, but my firm I worked at did. I remember getting called in to like pitch it in a deposition. And I was like a first year, maybe a second year attorney. And I remember asking, not a partner, because I couldn't let them know I didn't know what I was doing, but like another associate. I was like, what do I do? They're like, just nothing. Just listen to the name of the company and then just start listening. I was like, what? And it was my first experience with the deposition that had like, you know, so many parties on it. And it went on for like not only hours, days. But then I was like, shit, you just have to sit here and you just listen for the for the name to be called. I didn't say it was good advice, but it was the advice that one of my peers had given me. She's like, yeah, you just sit there and you listen. I was like, okay.
You have the problem is what, I mean, it's such a learning curve to those outside of that world.
Yes.
Because you really have very little connection, and it's just, you know, it almost is like the background noise. It's so niche, but it involves so many companies, so much money. It's such a thing. And I'll tell you, the hardest part for me, because, you know, when you're looking at mass tort or class actions or a combination, you know, and coming from a different claim type, right? The professional liability or whatever. The hardest part is how we track those claims, because there's a lot out there where you're like, oh, I sit in on meetings now, you know, with the rest of, you know, my organization, which is fantastic. And they talk about how their pendings are, you know, out of control. You hear this from a lot. It's not just my company. It's a lot of other companies. It's like,
it's a general theme. Yeah.
It's a general theme, right? It's a hard industry. It's a hard market right now. So, you know, belts are tightened as far as staffing, and that it'll soften up at some point, you know, and it'll be better, or it won't, you know, it just, you ride it out or you don't. But the hardest part was knowing you'd never close a file. Because, you know, I sit in, you know, on these meetings and they talk about a pending of 150, 200 claims. And that's a lot, right? As a single, insured, defendant, client, you know, and a single or a couple, you know, of defendants, of plaintiffs. And, you know, when I sit back and I'll sit in on this meeting and they're talking about this, and I kind of just chuckle at myself, you know, because I'm like, if I track them, you know, if I tracked all the claims by individual claim, you would need another server, because I have one account open now and it has 30,000 claims.
Whoa. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, so back, you know, I'm not going to close that file until we're out of money. Right? Because if I set up individual claim files for each of those plaintiffs, they're all lawsuits in my world. How do you administer that? You can't.
Right.
You just can't. So, I mean, you know, you get thrown into some of these situations, and, you know, I talk with people in the industry and they're like, oh yeah, you know, they talk about certain defendant, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's one of my little ones. They only have 1,200 claims, you know, and people said it's what, if they're not used to that. So, but it's again, it's very interesting. There's a learning, you know, definitely. I mean, if you're into science and you're a little bit of a geek, there are things that you can learn, you know, and it's always growing. You know, and the company that I'm at now, that I started off transitioning to this company and accepted the position to set up and run their legacy toxic tort business. which I did and do. But then I fixed it. And then, of course, I fixed it.
Because you get shit done. It might not be pretty, but you get it done.
But it gets done. No, this is kind of pretty. I mean,
yeah,
but then they say, okay, we'll do this. Oh, now do this. And so I'm on the third now do this, and it's not pretty, but it will be.
It will be
eventually, but
yeah.
it's you have to just figure out what you want and get yourself to a position where it's a want, not a need.
Yes.
I think. And there's a certain level of personal motivation and accountability that goes into that, right? Is once you figure out, and it does take a while, right? To figure out what you're good at, what you're legit. I mean, for a long time in the insurance world, this was a job. It was a job. It wasn't a career,
right?
And that's a really important distinction, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And now it's a career that a theme that comes up all the time, and that we need to encourage the younger generation to embrace, because there's so many people retiring, and who is going to fill those shoes in the coming years if we don't get people in the insurance industry.
Yeah, it's not just insurance industry, but it's also with law firms too.
Yes. You and I talked about this. Yeah.
Right. Is at least, and that's one of the things that has long been my pet peeve is, you have either, and it's usually not both, but you have either the firms that recognize that there needs to be a robust mentorship and successor plan. And then you have the firms that are like mine. I'm taking it when I go. Mine. And, unfortunately, I think the mines are larger in number than the mentor successor plan, because, and again, this kind of goes back to having the emotional level of a 20-year-old. You don't think you're ever going to die or retire, and so it's, you don't need to, it's one of those that I'll get to it next week. And next week turns into next month, turns into next year, and then retirement party, So I'm very in favor of passing along information, whether it's a true mentorship or not. But just throwing it out there and having some level of transparency in a world that is rife with privilege and work product issues and discovery issues, right? That there has to be some level where people are grown-ups and you share the information, too
much gatekeeping. Like I feel I feel like, and I don't understand totally where it comes from. It's like, they just don't feel confident that if I allow someone to have this information, they're going to take it away. They're going to like them better and take it away from me, or they're going to like that person better. And it's so short-sighted, and especially if you put it this way, if you've worked with this client for X amount of years and they send you, whatever portion of their work, and you develop this relationship with them, don't you want that same client to have a good relationship with someone else when you move on, rather than having to then scrounge and find someone new? You've worked so hard at this. Why not develop people to service that client in the same way?
I think that's a great insight that I think also goes back to this fear now that people aren't looking for careers at the same place. They're moving after 3 to 5 years. So I think there's I don't want to say a completely legitimate fear that they'll take the client if they like them better, because it is a thing. I always just, I don't know. I call it the field of dreams. If you build it and you do it well, the work will be there.
Yes.
And I talk to a lot of different law firms, and they always talk about, It's one of those things, if you've been in the industry as long as I have, you develop friendships and you learn way too much about inner workings of law firms, and kind of how it's set up. Like, for example, billable hour requirements.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of friends who left their, set up their own firms, split off from much larger firms, set up their own firms. And the first thing they did was do away with billable hours. And the mindset of the managing partner was, if you do the job the way you're supposed to, you're going to get the hours and you're going to get the clients.
Mm-hmm.
Worry about your reputation and good work. Don't worry about your hours, because if you do it, they will automatically be there for you.
Right.
And I agree with that.
Yeah. And I feel like, at least I remember early on in my career, there was more emphasis on just getting the hours and just get the hours and just get the hours and not so much on the quality of the work and the time spent. So then again, this was very early, but you would find yourself just being like, I just need billable work. I don't really even care about the product.
Right.
I just want to have the hours because I want that bonus at the end of the year. And I feel like, again, that's another short-sighted approach to it, because wouldn't you rather have your attorneys bill less and have a great product and have that client giving more than just trying to push it, just push out the numbers?
And it's an additional stressor.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean that coming into, a law firm as an associate, and it's your first couple of years doing it, you're kind of stressed out a little bit. First of all, I want to make a good impression. I want to take advantage of opportunities. I'm going to volunteer for projects, and sometimes the projects aren't billable things, right? Because you're being mentored, or you're going to a hearing to observe, right? Mm-hmm. You get dragged to something by a partner or senior associate or whomever, right? Mm-hmm. To develop your knowledge and to see how things really work, right? And then you find yourself at 10 o'clock at night going, crap, I need to get in 100 hours, before the end of the quarter, or whatever your benchmark is. And I'm like, I think that, again, is somewhat, short-sighted. Mm-hmm. The emphasis should be on value add, quality work, and reasonable expectations. Because I think, again, going back to, like a longevity, loyalty kind of situation, if you treat your people well and give reasonable goals and expectations, it'll be a better collaboration for the client. And that's ultimately the goal, especially in a marketplace that's as competitive as we all are, about getting clients and the bonus structures. And I think there's something just inherently challenging about succeeding in that type of environment.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is, I feel like the whole billable concept can be difficult on your mental health,
right?
When you equate your worth that day as to like how much you have on the board,
and then you get in, and then you submit your pre-bill. I mean, again, I know way too much about inner workings of law firms. You submit your pre-bill, and you've submitted, 50 hours for the week, and it gets cut to 30 because of all the things that are not billable, depending on your chosen path, type of client. And then so you're going, well, crap, what do I, now I've got to this week try to figure out how to even it out.
I know, but it's hard though too, because I think there is also, you do have people who care and do good work. And then there's other people who don't care and do crappy work and pad up their bills, or take advantage of you saying, "Oh, I don't care what you bill," and then don't do anything at all. Like, so you have to strike this balance between the two, because it still also is a business too. So you can't have people who don't do anything
Right.
So
No, and there
it's
needs
so
to
hard
be
to balance.
right. There's a balance. There's an accountability factor,
Yes.
right? Is which is where we unfortunately sometimes get sideways as an insurer, because we have an awareness of what you're just talking about.
Yeah.
And from our perspective, when we're getting, as a company, thousands of invoices a month,
Yeah.
how do you decide? How do you
Mhm.
decide legitimately, who falls into,
Mhm.
the 90% of people that, generally want to do a good job and are billing accurately, and then you've got, this small percentage that, like you said, may not be as accountable.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think it's intentional. I'll go on record with that. I don't think it's intentional,
No.
at all. It's just, but from an insurer standpoint, how do you decide?
Right.
And that gave rise to billing, and we wouldn't, there's a whole industry that's related to legal billing and
Right.
reviewing and appealing and rates and all of that,
Mhm.
which is a challenge for everyone,
Yes.
and there's no clear winner there, and
Yeah, I think everyone's trying to navigate the system the best they can. Yes, in an ideal world, you would have human eyes looking at every single bill and reviewing every single item. But when you have that volume, you can't do that. So then you have to automate it in some respect, and then
right.
in the automation process too, there's the flip side that happens, that I'm sure things get flagged or cut that are 100% legitimate, but
Absolutely.
Yeah. AI is not perfect either,
No, and one of the benefits, I think, to someone like me, who's stuck around, who's been in the industry for I'm 30 years in insurance this month.
Congratulations.
Dubious honor at best. Yeah, March 9th, actually, 1996. So I've reviewed my own bills for a long period of time, and have an idea of the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And and that the segue into platforms and computer-based reviewing. I look at them, and I mean, I still to this day review a good number of my own bills, because of the runoff business, and I kept some of the higher level coverage work, so I review those. I have them fed through LegalX, which is kind of a uniformized platform, right, that we all are familiar with in the industry. But I have them flag things, but don't deduct, because I think there is, again, I always come at it from a reasonableness standard. And I all the rest, we all have our pet peeves. I think we all, whatever it is, with billing, there's a couple of things that I'm like, no, absolutely not, or I can't believe it. And I've seen a lot though.
Yeah.
And there are people that I think, to your point, take advantage of the situation, but the majority don't. The vast majority don't. They're legitimately trying to do a good job for their clients, their work product, and it is what it is. But I don't like the pressure. We have so many pressures now. I think, I'll be honest, I think the billable hour, it will transition out, especially, and the only reason I say that, and it will be transition, is because of AI.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you can now, when you in mass tort, right? Because we're filing the same things over and over again, right?
Yes.
Notices of appearance, thousands a month, right? For some law firms, and our software programs replace all. Submit. That's not a billable time anymore. I mean, focus on the meaningful value add things.
Right.
So
Where are you
quantity, not
using
the quality?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Use personal accountability, use good, things that require judgment, things that require some of the softer skills, right? Analysis, strategy. Those are what are going to become the new billables instead of some of the boilerplate filing of appearances or motions to quash or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I embrace it because that stuff's annoying.
So annoying.
It's so annoying. But it really is. And I talk to lawyers all the time, right? And do talk to younger lawyers. I do a lot of, like we said at the outset, panels, at conferences and things. And I want you to identify a lawyer that went to law school to handle claims like this. Depending on your generation, you're looking at Matlock, LA Law, or the practice, or more modern Suits, right? You watch the OJ trial and you looked at, or Tommy Cochran, or you saw Aaron Brockovich, whatever, but you didn't go to law school. You either went to law school because your parent, there's some familial, your dad, you're following your dad, or your brother, or your uncle.
Yes.
You thought it would be a way to make money, or you wanted to be that trial rock star. Nobody did it to file motion after motion for cases that end up getting settled.
It's so funny. Like, I listen to my daughter and her friends talk, and they're like, I'd love to be a criminal defense attorney. I'm like, no, you wouldn't.
No.
I was like, it's not like the TV shows, girls. But I was like, have your dream.
Yeah. And, it's funny because I know how hard it is staffing wise, right, in law firms now to identify, interview, retain. It's crazy, especially in very hard markets like California and New York.
Yes.
It's just up here. And I talk with those attorneys and the partners, and they're like, we can't staff it. I said, well, you need to tell them that, being a social justice lawyer, how do you like living in your mom's basement? Because it doesn't pay. Right. And I said, keep their name on a list because in 4 years they're going to want a job because they're going to need to pay their rent, their mortgage, their car insurance, whatever. And, living at home with mom, because that's what you're doing. You don't make a lot of money, dying on that hill.
Yes. Although on the flip side, we do see a lot of people move around law firms more now, and it is for money. Like there's the loss of loyalty in that sense, and a lot of times we see them leave and then they come back because they realize the grass isn't always greener.
Right. And I do think there is room for, as long as it's these idealists that I look at and go, oh, cute. I mean, I think it's a necessary thing for people to go through. I don't want to diminish the value add there, but you also have to understand, you are prolonging sometimes, not for everyone. You've got to be a rock star to succeed in that world. Right. And, you can go work for Greenpeace or WWF, right? World, and it's fantastic. And I applaud the people that can actually have a life and support themselves and work for those organizations. I do. But that is like saying he's a great pitcher. He's going to be in the NBA, he's going to be a major league pitcher. It's that 1% of 1%. And it's great to have the idealism, but it's really hard to pay the bills, and, we all have social issues, and that's not why we're here. And I don't mean to denigrate that, that direction, but you also have to be somewhat realistic about your career and where you start. Going back to our theme is where you may not end up, and you have to figure that out, and everybody is going to figure that out.
I thought I was going to go to medical school. Now look at me.
I thought
you're probably very interested in the science behind it. When you get involved in a medical case, you're probably pretty interested in that, right?
What was your plan, Amanda?
I actually was gonna be a PD, public defender, and then they said the salary, and I was like, I can pay back my loans with that.
Well,
So
you
what
could
I
have
will
done it,
say,
but you
and
would
the
have been.
pressure.
I keep
Those
thinking of that.
pressures.
There was that movie 2 Weeks Notice or whatever it was called. Remember that was Sandra Bullock and
Yeah.
Hugh Grant, right? And her
Yes.
parents were like public. There was one was a public defense, I think public defender or some kind of organizer, very, very, hand to mouth kind of living, right? And she was in the public defender's office, and then she goes and works for this big corporation, but she's selling her soul,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's the balance to be struck there,
They live in a fancy New York City apartment on 2 public defender salaries. So
I never really
That's the
quite
most
got
unrealistic
that part of
aspect.
it. So, but it's still, you have to figure out, because ultimately that, I think, underscoring that movie theme somewhat was how to figure out what works for you, and whether that means, being, the person thinking about, the company and what you should or shouldn't be doing, or, just finding that balance, that doesn't require you kind of selling your soul. Whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are selling our soul. We're still doing the good work.
We're still doing good work.
doing the
No,
good work.
I agree.
We are out to help.
But a lot of people, I think, view the world in extremes, right? They can't, and a lot of what we do, we operate in the gray. And you have to figure out where that is for you, and that can be a challenge, and it comes from your background. It comes from where you grew up, the people that went to school with, the people that you call friends, family, political climate, whatever it is, it's different for everyone, and some people are very eyes on the prize. This is what I wanted to do. I went and did it. Good. Congratulations. That's a great achievement. It is. But that's not the majority, I don't think.
No, it is not. So Amy, we're pretty much out of time, but before we close up, and I could talk to you for hours. Like I could just sit
it's
here
fun, isn't it? Yeah,
I love chatting with you. We need to have you back on again. But before we close up, I want to ask you this. So if knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self?
That's a really good question, and my dog is barking. So don't get a big dog that barks at mailmen or delivery people. That would be my first thing. What advice? I mean, it's just keep your eyes open. Don't be afraid to leap. Constantly learn. Don't stop learning and asking questions. And whether it's because you're whatever you're thinking is. I mean, I like every year I take a class.
Good. Yeah.
Sometimes, for a while it was because I liked all the fun letters, in the insurance world. But take a class. It doesn't need to be, it could be underwater basket weaving, but always learn something. Don't say no to things just because of like a societal norm. Yeah. Or expectation, and that's a little bit touchy-feely, which people that know me I'm not a touchy-feely person, but I'm, like I said, mid-50s, and I'm doing things now that I never would have thought that I would have done, whether professionally or, I like to do long distance hikes. I just did, a 97-mile hike last year.
Amazing.
In my 50s. And don't rule anything out. Yeah. Really. Just, you never know where you're going to land. You're never going to know. You may fail. You may try and fail.
Yeah. But failing's okay.
But that's okay. You learn from it. You learn, hindsight. Don't be distracted by hindsight either.
Yeah.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda is the death. You just don't engage. I mean, the role I'm in, now at this company, which has grown over the past few years, I have a lot of calls about with law firms, with whatever that feel they need to defend something they did, right? And because we're being critical.
Mm-hmm.
And my advice, I come in as kind of Switzerland with experience and advice, and I say, look, we're not focusing on that. Get out of your head. Focus on how to finish this.
Mm-hmm.
And we will deal with the drama later,
Mm-hmm.
and I have, it's funny, I have on my laptop to remind me, actually, I'm gonna read it, but it's, I'll get over it and fix it, but I got to be dramatic first. And I think, and the point of that is sometimes your process is to be dramatic. Find your person that you can be dramatic to,
Mm-hmm.
and then get over it.
Yes, I can relate to that because you feel that rise and you get like upset or internally you just feel a certain way, and it not just work but just in life.
It's just in life. Right.
I need that rise so then I can fall and simmer down. And then sometimes I ridicule myself in my head about why'd you get so crazy about that?
I've been through a lot of different managers and whatever the title might be, right? Over the years, we've all known people, whether it's a mentoring type of situation or a true boss leader, depending on the phrase you like to use. And when I first started my current boss, manager, leader, and I went to him, I said, okay, look, I'm going to come into you occasionally and go, just listen, don't fix.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, what? And I said, you'll understand. And so, a week or so later, I'm like, I go into the office, close the door, and I just let him have it. And he goes, do we need to talk about this? I'm like, no, I'm being dramatic. I just needed to get it off my chest, and I needed someone to listen and tell me it was going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh no, you'll fix it because you always fix it. And I'm like, that's what I needed. Bye.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And I think that, so there's a lot of little nuggets. Take from it what you will, but really just don't be afraid to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Where you need to be dramatic first. It's kind of almost like a marriage, right? You don't want your husband necessarily to fix it, or wife. You just want them to listen to you for a minute.
Yeah.
And I think, that's an important thing is feelings tend to be important. Don't forget that, but find your outlet, and just don't be afraid to try new things. I mean, I volunteer for stuff probably to my detriment all the time, and I have no idea what they are. But you figure it out.
Yeah, when you start, you don't know what it is. When you finish, you know.
And then you may go through a lot of versions. Don't be afraid to redraft or go back and reflect. Go in a different direction, or you say, okay. And there was a movie, a sleeper movie. It was a crappy movie, but the one line I remember is the menu's going to change. It was a restaurant movie, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah, it was a restaurant movie, and it was like, we're out of this. We didn't buy this. Okay, the menu is going to change, and that's how I feel here. Is you have situations, and the menu is going to change,
and that's okay. Yeah.
So there you go. Take that for what it's worth.
I love it. Well, Amy, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I mean what I say. I think you need to come back on because you have so many great nuggets of wisdom, and you're just a joy to talk to. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
For coming on. And of course, for everyone listening out there, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to Claims Never Sleep. You can find us on your favorite streaming platform as well as YouTube. And thanks for tuning in.
This is the Claims Never Sleep podcast, presented by Cruiser Mitchell, with your host, Megan Henry.